There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Nature Connection Lunch and Learn series. My name is Stacy. I'm the Executive Director here at Bucks County Audubon Society. The Nature Connections program that we're doing through May 26th, Wednesdays at noon, is a really, really great program. We're doing different programs each week that sort of highlight things people can do in their own backyard, taking their observations of the nature that they're seeing and showing it out to scientists all over the world. So today we're looking at a really, really great program all about NestWatch. Next week, we have a wonderful educator from the Philadelphia Zoo who will be joining us to talk about frog watch. This is a great time of year to find frogs in any kinds of ponds or streams or wetland areas in your that you might have in your yard or neighborhood. So lots of great things coming up. Hopefully everyone will join us. If you've missed any of the sessions that we have that we've done so far, you can watch and catch up on them on our YouTube or on Facebook. Those are available for viewing there. So I think we're ready. Oh, and just a quick shout out to everybody. If you haven't been on our property here at Bucks Audubon, we are located on Creamery Road over in New Hope. I highly recommend it. Today is absolutely gorgeous. Things are like busting out all over. We've got lots of great colors, lots of flowers, lots of things blooming. It's really beautiful. We have a lot of people out enjoying the day. So hopefully all of you will get a chance to as well. So definitely stop by. All righty. Our speaker this week is actually our very own Director of Education, Diane Smith, who has been helping us. Some of you may know a little bit about NestWatch through our Bluebird Nest box monitoring program that we do on our site, but don't feel that should limit you. You can monitor any nest that you want. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
Welcome. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see you all here. And yes, I am the NestWatch coordinator for our 47 box Bluebird Trail. And it's quite thrilling. We already have some nests and some eggs. So I'm just going to give you an introduction to NestWatch, its uses, how to do it, and some other information about attracting nest birds to be nesting in your yard. So I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. Can everyone see that all right? Callie, give me a thumbs up. All right. So NestWatch is a community science program sponsored by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And what is it? Well, it used to be strictly US, and now it has been expanded to the entire continent of North America. And it's used to track the status of nesting birds, and how are they doing. So we track a number of different parameters: when nesting starts, how many eggs were laid, how many eggs hatch, and how many hatchlings actually make it out of the nest. And this is all entered into a database that studies how birds are doing, what's going on, changing over time, what's happening with different habitat, how urban areas and other things are potentially impacting the nesting behavior of birds. Now, one of the things that community science in general does is it provides a lot of data to scientists that they would not otherwise be able to obtain. Ornithologists, professional ornithologists, can't be as many places as the thousands and thousands of citizens who like to interact with birds can be. So our NestWatch observations are added to the thousands of others, and this database continues to grow. And we're providing really important information to science. And in the same time, we're learning about birds. Sorry? Okay, and we're also learning about birds in the natural world. One of the concerns I always had whenever I participate in any of the community science is what really happens to this data? Are scientists really using it? So I did a little research into whether or not the NestWatch data is being used. And this is not for you to read. This is just to kind of give you a sense of the scope of the data that's being used and how it's being used. So there's research articles, there's citizen science articles. And so in fact, the data that we provide is in fact being used. It's not as dramatic as some of the data compilations that we can see when we go to eBird. They'd have some very dramatic videos of bird migration and so forth. But you can see that the data that we're gathering is important. These are some of the current and ongoing studies that NestWatch is being used for. And you can see the effects of drought on eastern bluebirds. How do us nest watchers manage for invasive birds at nest boxes? And what, if any, are the impacts of light and noise pollution on nesting success? So how do we do NestWatch? There's a very particular code of conduct that nest watchers have to observe. The whole process of nesting birds can be very sensitive to disruption. And certainly in the course of study, we don't want to do anything that would inadvertently harm the birds that we're trying to get information about. So Cornell has developed a very simple code of conduct, how to approach a nest, how to watch a nest, and you can do the certification process all online. You can follow through the education that they provide, take a simple 10-question quiz and become certified. Then, of course, it's time to find a nest or several nests. And then the protocol requests that you visit every 3 to 4 days, roughly twice a week, provided, of course, that the weather cooperates. One of the items in the NestWatch protocol is that we don't go when it's cold and rainy or dark. So over the past week, when I was monitoring my nest, because of all the rain that we had, I was not able to get to my nests until about 7 days had passed. And then, of course, as will always happen, some of the nests that had been started in my boxes now had eggs. So that was pretty exciting. And then you record what you see, and then you report the data to NestWatch. And of course, as in many cases, there's an app for that. You can do all of this on your smartphone, either if you have an iPhone in the App Store, if you have an Android through Google Play. Okay, so a simple task to do is finding nests. If you have nest boxes, it's a lot easier, of course. But if you're looking for other kinds of nests that aren't in nest boxes, one of the things that is helpful to do is to identify what the birds are that are in your backyard. And then you can practice in the non-breeding season. Look for nests when there's fewer leaves on the trees. Knowing when to look and what to look for, and watching and listening are all important steps in finding the nests. So, for example, here's a sampling of what you can look for before there are leaves in the trees. If you're looking for nests in winter, many times, especially if you've got some snow, you'll see these odd formations in tree limb crotches. It'll be something that looks like a pile of leaves with a pile of snow on top. That's an old nest. So these are the way some of these winter nests will look, attached to branches, hidden within the needles of an evergreen tree, and so forth. You need to look at all different levels. Some birds nest very close to the ground, within 2 or 3 feet of the ground. And of course, there are some ground nesting birds as well. And other birds will put their nests as high as 10 or 15 feet up. So you need to scan different levels, scan different types of vegetation. But generally speaking, the birds will try and put them where they'll be protected. So it'll be, within several branches, the way you see the ones on the right, or hidden within some more dense foliage. You can also look at different points in the nesting cycle. Understanding the nesting cycle will help you determine when to look. So if you see birds flying through your yard, carrying grass, carrying twigs, those sorts of things, keep an eye on where they're going, because clearly they're carrying nest materials. So you want to just keep an eye on where they're going back and forth to. Searching when the birds are doing some egg laying is a little bit trickier. That's one of the times that disrupting a nest can be a problem. So I would suggest just keeping an eye on what's going on with that nest once you find it, after you've seen them carrying the nest building material. During incubation, it's a little bit safer. The eggs have been laid. Most times when you approach a nest, the bird that's incubating may leave, and that's okay. They don't go far. But one of the things about doing your nest monitoring is to do it as quickly as possible. Less than a minute is ideal. So when you're observing your nest, you want to be fast, because you don't want the incubating bird to be off the nest for too long a period of time. And then when nestlings are present, it gets pretty exciting, because you can see and hear them. Certainly they do make quite a bit of noise when they're begging for food. But again, when nestlings are present, once they've started to get their feathers, you need to be a little bit more reserved about approaching the nest, because if you startle them before they're really ready to leave the nest, and they do leave, that can cause them a problem. So one of the things about using NestWatch is they can provide you a lot of information about how long you can expect a bird to be incubating, how long you can expect the nestlings to be in the nest, so that you can know when they're starting to get close to fledging that it's time to back off on your observations a little bit, so that you don't inadvertently cause them to hop out of the nest before they're ready. Of course, one of the easiest ways to find a nest is to put up a nest box. And towards the end of this, we'll be talking about some information that's available on NestWatch about the right box for the right bird. And it's an interactive program that Cornell has that will help you when you try to find where to put your box and what kind of a box you can expect to have success with. So this is just kind of an infographic of the way the NestWatch data is collected. The first thing you do is you find a nest site. And then you will say, okay, I've got a nest started in this box. What does it look like? Who's in it? And for this case, the first nesting attempt in this particular box is a bluebird. And there you make your series of visits. You monitor what's going on in the particular nest. And then if the bird successfully fledged, you do a summary of that particular nest. The birds have fledged. And then in the case of a nest box, if it's early enough in the season, and May 20th in this case is quite early, you can remove the nesting material from that box, discard it carefully away from where that nest box is. You don't want any of that material too near the nest box, because that could attract a predator. And they'll be interested in what's going on in that box. So you want to probably put it in a bag and carry it away. You can then put it in your compost pile or whatever, but take it fairly far away from the box. But then you continue to monitor that same box. And luckily for whoever this nest watcher was, they got a second attempt. And this next attempt was a tree swallow. Tree swallows, bluebirds, wrens, chickadees, titmice will all use the same size box. So it's entirely possible that you would have a different species for the second nesting attempt in your box. So this tree swallow then builds a nest. You do your visits, and they have a successful fledging at the end of June. And then we have yet another attempt by an eastern bluebird in this particular box. And for some reason, this nesting attempt did not succeed. So for each of these nesting attempts, you record the data, you report the data, and at the end of the nesting attempt, you do a summary of it and report all of that to the NestWatch database. NestWatch has got lots of resources to help. A little bit later, I'm gonna take you to this nest site, this website, so we can do some scrolling around and you can learn the features of how to use it. This is what you can find when you go to NestWatch. This is just a screenshot of the nesting bird archive. So these are some common nesting birds that you might have in your yard and what you can do to help them nest, or in case of building a box, where to put it and how to construct it. This is what you might find with a typical nest progression. These are photos that I took during my NestWatch season last year. It was a box that started out on the left with just a small amount of grass, proceeded to 4 bluebird eggs, all of which hatched. They were pretty hungry when I looked at the first hatchlings, and they grew, and all 4 of them successfully fledged from the nest. So I was pretty thrilled with that. This particular box is over on Tuckamone Tree Farm and had 2 successful broods last year. It is also being monitored by me again this year, and it already has a nest with 2 eggs in it this year. So that's pretty exciting for me. And you can tell that this is a bluebird nest even before the eggs are laid by the material of construction. You can see that it's grasses, maybe some pine needles. This is a very typical bluebird nest. Here are some other nests that you might find in your nest box. The one on the left is your eastern bluebird. The one in the center, the Carolina chickadee, almost always has moss. It's a very cozy looking nest. It's nice and soft looking, very green and full of moss and other soft materials. Carolina wrens, on the other hand, tend to make a somewhat messy nest. Lots of different materials, grasses, leaves, some twigs. And the cup is generally towards the back of the box. You can see looking at this one that the nest bowl itself is towards the back. Then we've got your tree swallows. Tree swallows almost always put feathers in their nests. So they have a very unique description to them in terms of having the feathers. Titmice, somewhat similar to chickadees, they will use some moss. They tend to use a little bit more grass, however. And then your wrens, the house wren has a very messy nest, usually made of twigs, but also tending towards the back of the box. But their eggs are considerably smaller than some of the other species and have a very attractive rust color with some spots. So these are some of the birds that you might find in a typical nest box that you would put up in your yard. So if you do want to put a nest box up, there's some very particular kinds of things that you need to be aware of. Always use untreated wood. Use galvanized screws to construct it so that the material doesn't rust, and add iron into the interior of the box. Make sure that it's constructed to keep the birds dry. You want a sloped roof so that the rain runs off, making sure that there's enough of an overhang over the entrance hole so that the water doesn't drip in. You want a recessed floor so that the nest material doesn't get wet. And of course, it needs to have drainage holes. One of the common ways of putting the drainage holes in is to just cut the corners of the bottom piece so that you have 4 drainage holes, 1 in each of the corners. The walls need to be thick enough. If you use nominal 1-inch material, which is typically about 3/4 of an inch thick, that's perfect. It's thick enough that it will keep the birds warm, but it also will not get them to be too hot by having it heat up in the warm sun. Ventilation holes are very important. So you want to have some airflow through the box. Generally speaking, the way I like to see boxes constructed is to have the sides of the box not meet the roof so that you have ventilation all along the side of the wall. Predator guards are a significant contribution to the safety of your birds. Studies have shown that it increases the survivability of the nestlings by 7 to 10% to have predator guards. Interestingly, there is not a whole lot of difference amongst the type of guards in how they help the nestlings out. But one thing for certain is you never want to have a perch at the entry hole of your nest box. All that will do is make it easier for predators to enter into the box. So there's a number of different types of predator guards. There's the collar that you can put on the pole that it's on so that nothing can climb up from the bottom. A stovepipe is very similar as a type of baffle. A Noel guard is a type of cage that is out from the entry hole. It's very similar to a more common type, which is called a nest hole extender, which is just a piece of wood with a hole drilled in it that is the same diameter as the entry hole of the box that you're using, but it provides enough depth that it makes it more difficult for creatures to reach in and disrupt the nest, the eggs, and the nestlings. And you can see the common nest box predators snakes, raccoons, even chipmunks. And interestingly enough, for ground nesting birds, if you're not using a nest box, I've even seen pictures of deer eating eggs out of nests, out of ground nesting birds, which is strange. And then, of course, your common domestic cat is certainly a fairly significant predator of nesting birds. Okay. The next point of discussion is to make sure that the entrance hole is suited, as well as the dimensions of the box, for the bird that you're trying to attract. So this graphic, which is probably pretty small on your screen, but you can get this off of the NestWatch site as well, shows what the diameter of the entry hole should be for the type of bird that you want to attract. So it's quite specific, and it is actually quite useful in keeping out birds that you don't want. So for example, if you have a box that you're trying to attract eastern bluebirds, that's usually has the smallest, or one of the smallest entry holes, about 1.5 inches, say. That will keep out some of the larger birds that you don't necessarily want, like European starlings. Another point, and this is really significant, especially for folks that are constructing their own boxes, is to make sure that the interior walls are sufficiently rough that the fledglings will be able to leave the nest. There's a number of ways of doing that. You can just rough it up with some very rough grit sandpaper. You can cut some kerfs in it, make a little ladder up to the entrance hole for the birds to climb up, or even put a piece of hardware mesh on the inside of the wall. So something for the nestlings to be able to cling to walk up the side of the box and get themselves out of the nest hole. It's very distressing to find that since the nestlings could not leave the box, they did not ever make it out of the nest box and perished in there. Another particular thing, just that is more actually for your convenience than for the bird, is to make it so that you can place it, mount it, and maintain it easily. So if the bag is extended, that usually makes it easier to attach to the pole that you're mounting it on. And it has some sort of a hinged door or a hinged roof with a sturdy closing mechanism so that it stays closed for the birds. Some nest boxes come with a hinged roof. I find those a little bit more difficult to clean out because then you're lifting the nesting material up and out of the box, whereas a hinged side, you can really just kind of go in and scoop out the nesting material when it's time to clean it out. And then, of course, don't forget to monitor your nest box and enter the data into NestWatch. This, by the way, is a free program. It doesn't cost anything to join. All it takes is an email address, really. Okay, that is the end of this particular part of my share. So I'm going to stop sharing this and go to a different, and then we'll go to the NestWatch website. Okay. Oh, okay. Can I suggest a source for birdhouse construction or send the slides as a PDF? All right, you can get a lot of this house construction material information on the NestWatch site itself. So that's where we're going to go next, is to the NestWatch site, and you can see the myriad of information that's available there. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so here we are. This is the home screen for NestWatch. And on the left-hand side, it has the information about if you want to participate. So you can, it kind of goes through the steps, as I said, take the quiz to get certified, find your nests, record your data, and submit your data online or with the mobile app. So since the question was about birdhouses, I'm going to switch over to Right Bird, Right House. So here's one thing that you can look and say, we'll just run through this. I live in, let's see, I just don't want to live anywhere near there. Okay. Wow. None of these are southeast. We're not in the southeast. Where are we? It's not in the Pacific. All right, so we'll go to the northeast. And we'll say our habitat is a forest. See all of the birds with nest plans. So here you can see, interestingly, I would have not have thought that American robins were species in decline in this region, but that's what they seem to think. So here's a black-capped chickadee, for example. You can see this plan. And you can download the NestBox plan. It gives you some information about it. Here's your various nesting. There's your nesting range. There's your nesting habitat. You can see that it certainly will nest in towns as well. It shows the nesting period. You do have to give them your email address to download the plan if you want to download it. But here's an example of what your measurements would be: the entrance hole, the depth, the width, and the length. Okay, and you can add some shavings to the box floor to help with them nesting. So that's an example of that particular type of nest. So you can check another one if you want. Actually, I want to go to a different part of this website, and for some reason, all right, well, we're going to go over here to learn. Okay, so this is where you can find a lot more of information all about NestWatch. You can go to information on the nesting cycle. There's information on landscaping for birds, different articles about clutch sizes for various common species. But the one I want to look at right now is the common nesting birds. So this is the opening slide for common nesting birds. And there's a number of ways you can interact with this particular part of the website. You can filter for your region, the type of nest that you might have found, what the habitat is and what the substrate is. Or if there's a particular bird that you're interested in that they happen to put in the common nesting bird scenario, you can choose it and view it. So for example, since they said American robins were declining, let's take a look at what they have to say about American robins. Okay, so here are some egg and nest images. Since robins are in fact related to bluebirds, they're both in the thrush family, their eggs are also that beautiful blue color, often referred to as robin's egg blue. Their nests are made of grasses and mud. It's a cup nest. They do not nest in boxes. You'll find them in tree branches, or in various places, like on your downspout. Very often, if you have an outdoor deck with a roof on it, they'll put their nests on the support beams, and it tells you when to look, where to find it. Of course, they're all over the U.S., certainly where we are. Cup nests, how many eggs you'll find. This is the clutch size, how many eggs you might expect to find, and how high you should be looking. All right, so it's an open, it tells you, it will give you a description, other useful hints. They build the nest from the inside into using the wrist of one wing. That's pretty interesting. And this is a very significant point, because robins forage on lawns. They are vulnerable to pesticide poisoning and can be an indicator of a chemical problem in your neighborhood if the numbers are in decline. Here are your nesting statistics. They incubate for about 2 weeks and brood for about another 2 weeks before the nest will leave. So here's the various substrates. I've never seen a robin nesting on the ground, but I guess it's possible. Live tree branches are very common, vines and tangles as well. And here's your inner on the building. So this is how this website works for a particular species that you might be interested in. The other way to approach this is by using the filters. So we can choose our region, choose the type of nest that you're interested in, the habitat and the substrate, and that will return you significant numbers of whatever birds will respond to those conditions. All right, I'm going to stop the share for the moment. All right, and we have some more in the chat. I'm distracted by a pair of goldfinches at my feeder. That's very nice. And Callie had a number of robins fledged in her forsythia bushes. That's great. So if you are interested in NestWatch, there's a couple of tools that I like to use that have helped me a great deal in monitoring my nests and disturbing the birds as little as possible. So one of the tools that I use is a telescoping mirror. So this particular device can go, 3 feet or so. So if the nest is above your head, you don't have to be climbing. You can use the mirror to take a look into the interior of the nest without having to worry about trying to climb up onto something. Now for nest boxes, what I have been using, especially as the fledglings get older and move towards actually being out of the nest, I no longer want to open the boxes to look because that can startle them into leaving the nest early. So I purchased on Amazon for not very much money an endoscope that connects to my smartphone by way of Bluetooth. So it has a light. I'm going to shine it at my camera so you can see, so that it will light up the interior of your box. And it will also take pictures through your smartphone. Once you have it into the box and shining on the nest, you can then take pictures and record them to your phone. So this is, I find this really useful. It was only about $30. So it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about getting into my boxes when the birds are getting a little bit bigger, partly because it goes through the entrance hole. And so the birds really can't get past it. Whereas if you open the side of the box, they can be either jumping out of the side of the box towards you or going out of the entrance hole. So that's my introduction to NestWatch for you all. We're not that big of a group, so if you want to take yourselves off mute and we can chat, answer any questions, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you. That NestWatch site looks great.
Yes, there's really a ton of information there, and it's nestwatch.org, and it's you don't have to join to access the site, but if you want to do NestWatch, you will have to register with your email address. If you are already an eBird user or a FeederWatch user, any of those Cornell citizen science, community science programs, you can use the same login for NestWatch as you do for eBird or FeederWatch.
Okay.
So that you don't have to worry you don't have to worry about remembering more than one set of logins, which is always nice, at least for me. I always end up with my websites and passwords confused.
Thank
All right.
you.
Anything else that I can help you guys with? I really encourage you, now is the time. I really encourage you to, when you're walking around, take a look, keep your eye on the birds, see which ones are flying back and forth with nesting materials. It is not too late to put up a box if you're interested in putting a nesting box into your yard. Although nesting season has started, it goes on, through June at least. So if you've got birds looking for homes, it's always a good idea to put up a box for them. Not hard to do.
I bought a little birdhouse from Wild Birds Unlimited. It's sort of sort of grass-like. It's woven and it's sort of a teardrop shape.
Yes, that's for wrens.
And for wrens, yeah.
That's for wrens.
And yeah, I might have it in much too exposed of an area, but seems to be empty.
Well, what you can do is you can go onto NestWatch, look up wrens, and look at what the habitat they would prefer for that box to be in and what height it needs to be at.
Yeah.
One of the things that's more critical, I mean, wrens generally, they're pretty cosmopolitan. I've had them nesting in old boots in my garage. So, but that was a protected area, right? So they knew that they were pretty safe in my garage. Of course, I had to leave my garage door open all day so they could come in and out. But at night they were really safe because I closed the garage door. So, so yeah, they're very cosmopolitan. They have nested inside of my propane tank tops. So, you know,
Okay.
I would just look at where you have it placed and take a look at the habitat preferences on NestWatch.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so the mirror, I actually got this mirror at Home Depot. I was looking for one and I got it at Home Depot. They also have them available on Amazon. Just look up telescoping mirror. They have a nice one. This one happens to be a Craftsman, for those of you that remember the old Sears stuff. But they have a number of different ones on Amazon. They're not that expensive. The endoscope as well. It's a depth tech. I got this on Amazon as well. And if anybody wants those links, you can send me an email to Diane Smith at bcas.org, and I will send you the links, the Amazon links on where to get those.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy your nesting birds this season.
All righty. Thank you so much, Diane. That was great. I have to watch. I have tons of birds in my backyard, and I can't tell which ones are actually building nests there. So I'll keep a closer look. So.
All right, Amy, opening the door, does it bother them? Generally speaking, no. One of the protocols about approaching a nest box is to make a significant amount of noise while you're approaching, and also to tap on the box itself so that the birds know you're coming. And if they want to stay on the nest, they can. If they want to leave, they can. But it's you're going to be at the nest box for less than a minute. So the birds, they may fly, but they don't go far, and they come right back. They've expended a significant amount of energy and effort into the construction of that nest and to laying those eggs. So they're not going to abandon it just because you went and had a look at it. But that is why we recommend going no more than twice a week to look. Because if you were to, you know, repeatedly disrupt them, like on an everyday sort of basis, that might be enough to drive them away. But Cornell has determined that, you know, twice a week is fine, and it won't do any harm to the birds or the eggs. Okay. All right. That's all the questions I see in the chat. So thank you all again for coming. And if you have any questions or, you know, want more information, feel free to email me, and I'll be more than happy to try and help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Diane. And remember, next week is all about frogs and Frog Watch, which should be a great program as well. So definitely invite your friends. We would love to have more people joining us. So thank you all so much, and I hope everyone has a great day.